Hi, I'm Cindy Veldhuis. I'm a research psychologist and an associate research scientist at Columbia University School of Nursing. Dr. Arcia asked us to talk a bit about policy changes that are needed in order to improve the lives of LGBTQIA plus people. And I decided instead to talk about an existing policy and why it has wider impacts than most people think, and why it's critically important that we make sure that as administrations change, that this policy doesn't get overturned. So the policy I'm referring to is marriage equality. This was put into law in 2015, and it allowed same-sex couples to legally marry anywhere in the United States. And this was widely heralded as an important policy because it gave LGBT people access to one of the main institutions in the United States, marriage. Not only is that important in terms of rights, it's also important because my research and research of others shows that being in an intimate relationship is good for health. I like to think about two aspects of policies, the practical impacts and the structural or social impacts. The practical impact of marriage equality is that it allows people who previously could not legally marry or could only get married legally in some states the right to marry. And this in turn had other practical impacts on adoption, visitation in hospitals, divorce, the death of a partner, etc. And all of these are important, but the policy has other impacts as well. The policy was a step towards the demarginalization of LGBT people. Not only did the policy legitimize same-sex relationships, it legitimized being a sexual or gender minority person overall. It demonstrated broadly that we are actually people deserving of actual rights. It improved social acceptance, it had positive effects on relationships with families, and it had broad-ranging positive impacts on health and well-being. And it was associated with improved attitudes towards LGBT people, and towards same-sex marriage. So I guess my point is that policies can have real practical impacts, but also more structural or social impacts as well. As another example, if we think about all the bills being introduced at the state level that aim to exclude trans kids from being on sports teams that are consistent with their gender, those bills do have real practical consequences for trans kids involved in sports, but they more dangerously send a message to the whole trans community that they don't have the same rights as everyone else. This results in further marginalization and stigmatization, which will likely have cascading effects on well-being. And also the very debates about bills like these and marriage equality have impacts on people. Often when people are trying to whip up public support for their desire to limit the rights of others, they'll engage in rhetoric that can be outright harmful in order to vilify or further marginalize LGBT people. And research shows that these debates and rhetoric can have actual negative implications for LGBT people's mental health and relationships. So these same dual practical and structural impacts that I've described can be found in many positive and negative policies aimed at improving or curtailing the rights of more marginalized or minoritized groups. I think and I hope that this shows how critically important policies can be to the health and well-being of people. And that's me. That's my information if you want to reach out and talk more about this. Thank you so much, and I hope that you have a good summer.